They said the sky cried the day she made her choice. And the trees. They whispered among themselves. Did she really do it? Yes. She did. In the village of Odu, where palm wine tastes like song and secrets hang like drying clothes, lived a woman named Nuema. She had skin the color of roasted yam and eyes that caught every lie before it dropped. Men admired her, women feared her, and children, well, they stayed out of her shadow. But Nuema had a hole. Not the kind you see with your eyes. A hole deep in her chest. A wanting. A hunger. Not for love, not for joy. But for something that shines and clinks. Gold. It started small. She'd wear her wrapper tighter when she passed the market, hoping the gold traders would notice. She'd ask old Mama Nkechi to retell the story of the merchant who turned his floor into coins. But it wasn't enough. She didn't want to hear about gold. She wanted to hold it. Feel its weight. Let it pour like soup into her life. Then came the day. A day that didn't dress itself in thunder. No, it came quiet. Soft. Like a cat rubbing against your leg before it bites. She gave birth in the evening. A girl. Tiny, but fierce. Eyes sharp. Like they already knew something. The midwives clapped, the women sang. But Nuema, she did not smile. That night, while others danced under moonlight, Nuema sat alone, staring at the newborn who had not yet been named. She hummed a song that no one taught her, a lullaby with no sweetness, only edge. Then he came. Not through the door. Not through the window. He was just there. A man dressed like smoke and silence. Face covered. Hands smooth. His voice came like honey spilt on iron. You called for gold. She didn't flinch. I can give you gold, he said, but the price is flesh. She didn't blink. Your child, he whispered. For more gold than your village can count in a lifetime. She blinked once. And then. She said yes. The man gave her a wrapped gourd. Inside. Not gold coins. No. Powder. A dust that shimmered and swirled like the Milky Way. He told her to pour it into her cooking pot and boil it. When she did, the steam that rose turned into golden leaves. She laughed. A sound no one in Odu had ever heard from her lips. The next morning, Nuema's hut shone like the king's palace. Her roof glittered. Her compound danced. Children pressed their noses against her fence. Elders shook their heads, muttering into their chewing sticks. But no one asked about the baby. Not until old Mama Nkechi knocked on her door. Nuema, she said, where is the child? Nuema smiled and said, sleeping. But Mama Nkechi was a woman who had heard lies crack before. That evening, the moon did not rise. And somewhere, a goat screamed without reason. The river behind her house refused to flow that night. It stood still, like it was holding its breath. The frogs didn't sing, the crickets bit their tongues, and even the wind tiptoed away. By morning, her compound was empty. Not a single feather of sound. She sat outside, legs crossed, gold dust still clinging to her fingers. Villagers walked by, heads bent, eyes low. No one dared speak. Not even the talkative twins who usually fought over roasted maize. But silence has teeth. And gossip. It finds cracks in stones. A boy named Ikenna, the palm wine tapper's son, had peeked through her window the night before. He said he saw the baby vanish. Not crawl. Not cry. Just disappear into thin air, like a puff of smoke after rain. The elders met. Graybeards nodded. Chewing sticks paused. They all agreed, something foul had crept into Odu. They didn't point fingers. Not yet. But their eyes pointed. And all those eyes rested on her. Still, Nuema walked through the village like a queen. Gold bangles jangled on her wrists. Her neck dripped with chains. She threw coins at children like pebbles in the stream. Some picked them up, Some ran. But Mama Nkechi didn't run. The old woman returned the next evening. This time, her face was wrapped in red cloth, and her walking stick glowed at the tip. "Nweyama," she said, "I know a deal when I smell one." Nweyama didn't answer. She was busy grinding pepper, pretending not to hear. "You traded your tomorrow," Mama Nkechi whispered, "for today's glitter." That made her pause. "You think gold stays loyal," the old woman spat. "It shines today, but tomorrow it buries you." Nweyama laughed. Short. Sharp. Like a drumbeat without rhythm. "Then I'll build my grave with gold," she replied. That night, it rained. Not water. Frogs. Fat, wriggling frogs fell from the sky, slapping roofs and splattering mud. People screamed. Chickens ran mad. And in the center of it all, Nweyama's house started to leak. Gold dust washed away like soap. The roof lost its shine. The compound dimmed. Her bangles turned dull. Her chains snapped. She ran outside, eyes wide, mouth open, hands stretched toward the heavens. But the heavens didn't answer. Instead, a baby's cry pierced the air. It didn't come from her house. It came from the forest. Far. Deep. Beyond the trees where no one dared go after sunset. She froze. That cry, it was her daughter's. Alive. And angry. The next morning, Nweyama was gone. Her hut stood cold. Her gold vanished. No one saw her leave. No one saw her return. But the footprints told a story. One set of adult feet, leading toward the forest. One tiny pair, coming back out. And that, they say, was when the curse began. The forest doesn't lie. It hums. It watches. It remembers. And that morning, when the sun blinked through the mist, the forest held a secret in its breath. A baby. Wrapped in banana leaves, eyes like fireflies, skin glistening like morning dew. No one dared touch her. She lay at the edge, just where the grass turns wild, quiet as a whisper. Then the child opened her mouth. Not to cry. To speak. Only one word. But it turned the wind backwards. Mama. The word flew. It reached the market, where yams tumbled from baskets. It flew to the stream, where the water reversed. It flew to Mama Nkechi's shrine, where her pots shattered without warning. She dropped her cowries. She's returned, Mama Nkechi muttered, touching her chest. But the gold must pay. By midday, the village gathered. No one called for a meeting. They just came. As if their feet were being pulled by drumbeats only the earth could hear. The baby was placed in the middle. Still. Watching. Quiet thunder in her stare. Then something wild happened. The ground around her began to change. Grass turned to glass. Stones to ash. Chickens scattered. Goats fainted. And the villagers. They stood frozen, their hearts beating in foreign rhythms. A voice came from the forest. Not a shout. Not a whisper. It was her. Nweyama. But she didn't look like herself. Her skin was gray like forgotten smoke. Her eyes held gold where black should be. And her feet didn't touch the earth. She hovered, like a secret the land refused to bury. She stretched her hand toward the child. Mama, the baby said again. But this time, the voice echoed in every villager's ear, like it was inside them. Mama Nkechi stepped forward. No, she warned, raising her stick, you chose gold. You gave up your name. You have no mother left in you. Nweyama's hand trembled. The gold in her eyes started to crack, like glass under fire. I want her back, she whispered. The wind hissed. Trees bent backward. Birds flew in crooked shapes. You can't have her, Mama Nkechi said. She belongs to the land now. And then, like a calabash dropped on stone, Nweyama shattered. Not into blood. Not into bones. Into coins. Hundreds of them. Each stamped with her face. Each one cold. The villagers gasped. The child did not. She stood. Walked. At barely a year old. She picked up one coin. Just one. Then dropped it. And it melted into the earth. Days passed, but time didn't feel like it moved forward. It turned in circles, like a goat tied too tight. The baby, now called Eri, was taken in by Mom and Ketchy. She grew fast. Too fast. By the time yam season ended, she was speaking in proverbs. By the time the rain softened, she was correcting the elders. And by the next full moon, Eri no longer played with the other children. She sat with trees. She listened to stones. She laughed at thunder. But strange things kept happening. A hunter brought back an antelope wrapped in golden rope. Nobody knew where he got it. A woman found her calabash filled with shining coins after a simple prayer. Then, a child drank from the river and spoke in 3 tongues, none of them his own. The village knew. The gold hadn't gone. It had scattered. And Eri. She was the map. At night, the villagers whispered behind closed doors. Should we send her away? She's too powerful. She's not natural. But they forgot one thing, Eri could hear everything. Not with her ears. With her skin. With her breath. With the very beat of her tiny feet. One morning, she walked into the village square. Alone. Barefoot. Her wrapper too big, her eyes too still. She pointed to the elders. All of you, she said, ate from the gold you feared. They looked away. She pointed to the children. You picked the coins your parents dropped. They blinked. She pointed to the trees. You, too, she said, took her ashes in your roots. Then she turned to Mom and Ketchy. You, Grandma, are the only one who asked for nothing. The old woman smiled, not proud, just tired. Eri raised her hand. And the earth split, just a little. Just enough to make everyone step back. You must choose, she said. Her voice was calm, like palm oil on cold yam. Keep the gold, and I leave. The crowd murmured. Lose the gold, and I stay. A silence fell. One that tickled the ears and pinched the air. The first to speak was the blacksmith. I buried a gold coin beneath my son's bed, he confessed, eyes wet. Then the weaver spoke. My mat shop was built with golden dust. I didn't ask where it came from. Then the meat seller. My cow gave birth to twins after drinking water that glowed. I didn't question it. One by one, the village peeled its sins open. Laid them like cola nuts at Eri's feet. When the last tongue fell silent, Eri closed her hand. The crack in the earth healed. The sun blinked once, then smiled. But you still owe something, she said. And with that, she walked back to Mom and Ketchy's hut and slept for 3 days without moving. The third dawn arrived like a dancer with quiet feet. Inside the hut, Eri opened her eyes. She sat up, stretched, and spoke a single sentence that peeled the night from the walls. Let the debt take shape. Mom and Ketchy felt the floor tremble. She gathered her wrapper, followed the child outside, and watched the ground paint a path of faint gold dust toward the river bend. Villagers gathered, drawn as if by hidden drums. Eri walked ahead, barefoot, her small heel leaving embers in the dust. At the river, the dust settled and formed a tall pot fashioned from translucent stone. Water inside shimmered, yet refused to spill over. Eri turned to the elders. Each coin you hid, each handful you snatched, each secret you carried must visit this pot, she said. Only then will the land forgive, and your tongues taste sweetness again. The smith stepped forward first. From a pouch beneath his belt he drew a coin still warm with shame. He dropped it. The surface sizzled, then cleared. One by one they came, the weaver, the meat seller, farmers, hunters, midwives. Coins struck water like rain returning to sky. With every splash a branch blossomed along the riverbank, though it was not planting season. At noon, only one villager had not approached, Ataku, the chief's sister. Her braid gleamed, her fingers shook, but her pocket remained closed. She glared at Eri. "Why must we obey a child who arrived on a whisper?" she asked. "My gold feeds my goats feed my clan." Eri did not raise her voice. She simply pointed at the goats grazing nearby. They bleated, quivered, and grew still. Their horns bent downward, sprouting leaves. In moments, a ring of small trees stood where goats once nibbled grass. Gasps fluttered through the crowd. Ataku pressed the coin to her lips turned gray, and she sprinted to the pot. The coin left her hand, the trees transformed back into bewildered goats, and color returned to her face. Afternoon clouds rolled by as if applauding. The pot, now full, glowed softly. Its light spread across the river, making fish leap with silver joy. Eri dipped a calabash, filled it with radiant water, and handed it to Mom and Ketchy. "Guard this," she said, "for the night is not yet finished." A rumble crawled from the forest, low and steady. Birds burst from branches in ragged spirals. The villagers tightened circles around the pot. From behind the oldest tree stepped a figure built of broken daylight and ash. No trace of Nuema remained, yet her face lingered in the curve of its cheekbone. Gold cracked across its skin like lightning frozen in clay. "You call me Det," it rasped, "but I am Promise." With each word, flakes of gold drifted away like dying moths. Eri faced the figure, her shadow merging with its fading glow. "Then Promise must choose, feed the land or feed the void." The river darkened. Frogs echoed warnings. Leaves curled. Time balanced on a reed. The figure lifted a trembling arm, extended a palm of crumbling treasure, and sighed, "I feed the land." It stepped into the pot. Light blazed, swallowed, and finally softened into calm. When the glare faded, the pot had vanished. In its place lay a mound of soil threaded with tiny shoots already reaching for sky. Rain began, gentle as lullaby, soaking the soil, kissing cheeks, washing fear. Eri sniffed the air, smiled as if tasting ripe mango, and turned to the village. "This is only the middle," she said, "so dance until the sun sleeps." The rain danced long into the night. It tapped rooftops, whispered through banana leaves, and slipped into dreams like a clever thief. The earth drank and smiled, and for the first time in many moons, the village of Odu felt clean. But dreams, oh dreams, they're sneaky things. In the middle of the night, Eri opened her eyes. Her body lay in Mom and Ketchy's hut, but her spirit was far, floating above baobab trees, gliding over moonlit rivers, drifting into a world behind the world. There, she met three beings seated around a fire that did not burn wood but glowed from secrets. The first was old, eyes like dry seeds, beard woven with spiderwebs. The second was young, fingers dripping with honey, laughter caught in his teeth. The third was her. Not her now, but her later. Taller, sharper, wrapped in a robe made of rain. They spoke without mouths. "The land has accepted your offering," said the old one. "But there is one more not," said the young one. "The gold," said the future Eri, "was not the beginning." And just like that, she was back, blinking at the thatch roof. Mama and Ketchy stirred beside her. "I dreamt the sky wore sandals," the old woman mumbled. "I dreamt truth," Eri whispered, rising like mist. She stepped outside. The stars bowed slightly. By dawn, word had already spread. A trader had arrived. Not from any known town. His feet were bare, his smile too wide, and he carried a bag that rattled. He set up a stall at the edge of the market and unwrapped his goods, golden bracelets that hummed, necklaces that pulsed like heartbeat, rings that whispered names when worn. The villagers crowded him. "No coin," he said, "just a trade." "What kind of trade?" asked the blacksmith's wife, eyes stuck on a dazzling anklet. The man grinned, showed his teeth. Too many of them. Trade me your voice. Or the color of your dreams. Or the memory of your mother's laugh. People paused. Then a young man stepped forward, eager. Take my shadow, he said. It's useless at night. The trader agreed. The anklet shimmered. The young man walked away, but his shadow didn't follow. It stood behind, blinking, then vanished like smoke. Nobody screamed. Not yet. But Eri had seen enough. She stepped into the market square and clapped her hands once. The sound rang like a cracked bell. The trader turned, eyes narrowing. Child of secrets, he hissed. Son of greed, she replied. Do you plan to stop me? No, said Eri. I plan to ask. She stepped closer. Why now? The trader's grin twitched. Because hunger returns. The curse wasn't just your mother's. The land remembers the first trade. Before gold. Before language. What was traded? Eri asked. The trader's smile widened. Belonging. At that moment, a wind whipped through the market, lifting dust, flipping baskets, chasing chickens. Eri raised her palm. I trade you this, she said. The trader's eyes gleamed. What is it? My silence, she replied. But it will not taste sweet. And then she screamed, not in fear, not in pain, but in power. The scream rippled like thunder, like waves crashing into glass. The ground cracked, the trader's bag split open, and the gold within turned to ash. He shrieked, melted into the stall, and was gone before the echo died. Villagers rubbed their ears. Some wept. Some dropped to their knees. Eri stood still. Her voice gone. Her eyes wet. But her feet firm. Mom and Ketchy appeared behind her, wrapped her arms around the girl. You gave him your voice. Eri nodded. But you kept your name, the old woman said. And the sky began to hum. They say silence is golden. But on that morning, silence had teeth. Eri had no voice, but she didn't need one. The trees bent lower when she passed. The goats stopped chewing to bow. Even the river, cheeky as ever, flowed softly when she approached. Mom and Ketchy watched her carefully. She'd seen too many suns rise to mistake stillness for peace. You gave him your voice, she said again as they pounded yam together that afternoon. But he didn't take your fire. Eri smiled. Just slightly. Then tapped her finger 3 times on the wooden pestle. Tap, tap, tap. It wasn't just a rhythm. It was a message. The sound flew through the village like a clever bird. Every elder, every child, even the stubborn palm wine tapper who always claimed he didn't hear nonsense, paused to listen. 3 taps. That night, they gathered by the old Irako tree, the same place their ancestors once danced during eclipses, where oats had weight and fire didn't burn lies. Mama and Ketchy stood. The child can no longer speak, she said. But she asks that we listen. Eri stepped forward, carrying a small calabash. Inside, ash from the melted gold, soil from the riverbank, and a single goat's whisker, black as midnight secrets. She poured the mix into a circle, stepped inside, and began to move. Not dance. Not walk. Something else. A weaving of limbs, a conversation in motion. Her hands spoke thunder. Her feet whispered memories. Her eyes told riddles that no lips could carry. The wind joined her. The leaves clapped. The ground trembled gently. Then, all at once, she froze. The villagers leaned in. A sound, soft as breath, filled the air. Not a voice. A heartbeat. From the center of the circle, the ground pulsed. Boom. Again. Boom. The soil cracked. A hand rose from beneath, not dead, not alive. Pale, dust-covered, reaching. People stumbled back. Mama Nkechi did not. She stepped forward and placed a kola nut in the palm. The hand closed. And was gone. Just like that. The heartbeat stopped. But in its place, a flower grew. Fast. Wild. Gold-tipped, red-rooted, and wide as a baby's palm. Eri touched it. Her voice returned. Like a drum reskined. She gasped. Then whispered, "It has begun." "What?" asked Mama Nkechi, even though she already knew. "The root," Eri said. "The very first trade, it's waking." That night, no one slept. The stars blinked nervously. The animals circled their pens without rest. The trees rustled even when the wind held its breath. By morning, children found their toys moving without touch. A broom swept a compound on its own. A mirror in the chief's house whispered names that hadn't been spoken in 3 generations. And deep in the ground, something ancient opened one eye. Not angry. Not kind. Just hungry. Eri sat by the flower. Waiting. "What does it want?" asked the hunter's daughter. Eri looked up, eyes sharper than spears. "It wants what was stolen." "What did we steal?" Eri stood, voice low. "Our place." The next morning didn't smell right. The breeze carried heat, not warmth. Smoke curled from places where no fire had been lit. Chickens refused to crow. Even the drums, which usually greeted sunrise with joyful tum-tum, remained silent, tight-skinned, waiting. In the center of the village, Eri knelt before the golden flower. It had grown taller overnight, now bending slightly, like it was listening for gossip. Mama Nkechi joined her, holding a small pouch. "What's inside?" Eri asked. "Questions," the old woman said, wrapped in pepper and tied with yarn. Eri didn't ask more. Some answers only reveal themselves when nobody's looking. A shadow passed above them. No clouds. No birds. Just something that made the skin crawl and the soil sweat. The elders stepped outside with cowrie shells and bitter leaves tucked under their tongues. Then a cry rang out. The market square had vanished. Not burned. Not broken. Just gone. In its place stood a hill made entirely of bones. Goat bones. Cow bones. And in the center, a giant golden eye, open and blinking slowly, as if it had just woken from a very long nap. Children screamed. Mothers clutched their wrappers. The men stood stiff like carved wood. But Eri walked forward. The eye blinked once, then again. And then it spoke. Not with lips. With everything. "I have waited," it said. "You've forgotten my name, but I remember every trade, every coin, every whisper hidden behind your teeth." Mama Nkechi stepped beside Eri. "What do you want?" "To finish," the voice said. "Finish what?" Eri asked. "The first bargain." And just like that, the ground opened. Not wide. Not deep. Just enough to show a staircase made of black stone. Eri didn't hesitate. She took one step. Then another. Then she was gone. Mama Nkechi followed, her cane tapping rhythmically. The stairs were warm, like breath. The air was thick with stories too old to remember. Carvings lined the walls, images of people offering laughter in exchange for gold, memories for meat, hearts for harvest. At the bottom, a chamber. Circular. Empty. Except for a single mirror that didn't show reflections. It showed truth. Eri looked. And what she saw made her gasp. A woman, not Nweyama, not herself, not her mother, but something older, seated on a throne of traded things. Toys. Secrets. Names. Smiles. "Who are you?" Eri whispered. "I am the root," said the woman. "The one forgotten when stories grew tall. I fed your land when your ancestors chose the shiny over the sacred." Eri stepped closer. "Then why are you angry now?" I'm not angry, the root replied. I'm hungry. And hunger doesn't forget. She stood. Her robe dragged the past behind her. To end this, a choice must be made. What choice? The root woman raised her hand. Give back the first thing ever taken. The first that was not yours. Silence. Eri turned to Mom and Ketchy, who had already started crying. I know what it is, the old woman whispered. And it's not gold. It's not even flesh. Eri nodded. It's belonging. The root woman smiled. Then give it. And Eri did something strange. She knelt. Not in fear. Not in surrender. But in offering. I belong, she said. To land. To wind. To drum. To silence. Take what you need. The mirror cracked. The chamber shook. The staircase vanished. But Eri remained. Not broken. But changed. The ground above held its breath. Not one tree swayed. Not one insect buzzed. Even the frogs at the riverbank tucked in their throats, waiting. Then, Eri rose. From soil. From silence. From the deep where belonging had been buried. But she didn't come back the same. Her skin shimmered like bark after rain. Her hair curled upward like smoke chasing stories. And her eyes, her eyes, held colors no tongue could name. Mom and Ketchy followed close, limping with grace, cane in one hand and the cracked pouch of pepper questions in the other. The villagers gasped as Eri stepped into the sun. A few dropped their baskets. A few dropped to their knees. The golden flower bowed. And then it happened. The hill of bones in the square shook, sneezed, and crumbled into dust. From its heart rose a tree. Tall. Spiraled. With gold leaves and roots that hummed beneath the ground like drumbeats from below. At its base sat a new pot. This one wasn't forgiving. This one gave. A little boy approached, hesitant. He dipped his hand in. Pulled out a fish. Still breathing. Gasps floated like feathers. A woman reached in next, pulled out a necklace, not of gold, but carved wood-shaped like her late father's smile. Then a hunter. He pulled out a feather wrapped in cloth. Inside, a tooth from the lion his great-grandfather had slain. Each gift was different. None were asked for. All were needed. It's giving back what we forgot, Eri said. But why now? Asked the weaver. Because we remembered. The people stood in silence. Until one of the twins, the wild one with mud always on his face, spoke up. Does this mean the curse is gone? Eri tilted her head. Thought. Then smiled. No. It means it's listening. The root had not vanished. The hunger had not died. But balance had returned. And the land loves balance. That night, a celebration began. One that wasn't planned. One that didn't need drums to begin. People danced with bare feet. With elbows. With ears. They sang in tongues only the stars understood. Fires flickered in laughter. Eri sat beneath the new tree, chewing roasted yam and nodding to a rhythm that only she could hear. Mama and Ketchy sat beside her. You did well, the old woman said. I just listened, Eri replied, licking palm oil from her fingers. Mama and Ketchy opened the pouch at last. Poured its contents into her palm. Inside. A single question. Written in red powder. Who were you before the world told you? Eri smiled, tucked the question behind her ear, and stared at the moon. It blinked at her. And turned a little gold. The 9th day began with no noise. Not because the world was sleeping, but because the world was watching. The new tree in the square no longer swayed like other trees. It listened. It breathed. It blinked with slow golden light, shedding one leaf each hour, no more, no less. Each fallen leaf floated, never touched the ground, and disappeared into air before anyone could catch it. Signs, Mama Nkechi said, tracing a line in the dust with her toe. Messages, Eri replied, her eyes locked on the branches. The pot at the base of the tree had not run dry. It still gave. But it gave strange things now. A calabash of tears. A voice from someone who hadn't been born. A comb made of cloud. Amun once pulled out a folded piece of cloth. When he opened it, it became wind. The wind kissed his cheeks, whispered the name of a woman he once loved, then flew off laughing. Everything had meaning. Nothing was explained. And that is how mystery behaves. But then something odd happened. The pot gave Eri a mask. Wooden. Smooth. Black as forgotten dreams. Its eyes were open, but too wide. Its mouth was sealed shut with a thread that shimmered silver. She held it in her lap. What does it mean? Asked Mama Nkechi. It means we're not done, Eri said, tracing the eyes. By evening, a sound began. Low. Slow. Crawling on its belly. It came from beyond the hills. From the land where no farms grow. Where the wind loses its name. The villagers froze mid-laughter. Mid-dance. Mid-soup. Even the tree stiffened. Eri stood. The mask in one hand. A question behind her ear. The sound got closer. It was not drums. It was not footsteps. It was breathing. Heavy. Hollow. Like something old remembering how to exist. Then it arrived. Not a creature. Not a person. A hole. Walking. A black spiral that spun itself forward with no legs. Where it passed, footprints vanished. Words forgot their meanings. Fire flickered blue. Children cried without knowing why. Mama Nkechi clutched her chest. The hole has come. The what? The thing we buried with silence. The shame we called a story. The root beneath the root. Eri didn't flinch. She placed the mask over her face. The world went quiet. Then the hole spoke. In voices. All of them. Together. Too many. Do you see me now? Eri nodded. Do you remember what you did? She didn't answer. Because she felt it. The very first trade. Long before Nweyama. Before Odiu. Before names. The land had been exchanged. Not gold. Not babies. The right to forget. Her people once traded their memory. For power. For peace. For protection. And now, memory had come walking. The hole reached the tree. The tree held firm. Then Eri stepped forward. I remember, she said. The hole paused. I remember the price. I remember the hiding. I remember what we became. Then she removed the mask. Broke it in two. The air shattered. The hole shivered. And slowly, like a drum being unplayed, it began to close. The world exhaled. From where the hole once stood, a small seed rolled into Eri's palm. It was warm. And it pulsed. The final day did not come with sunrise. It came with stillness. Even the shadows stood still. The kind of stillness that makes your skin feel watched. The kind that knows a secret and won't tell. Eri held the seed. It pulsed, soft and slow, like a heartbeat wrapped in honey. Mama Nkechi stood beside her, whispering to the trees. The golden leaves listened, nodding gently as if to say, we've been waiting too. The villagers had stopped asking questions. They only watched now. Like the land itself. Eyes wide, breath soft. Eri walked to the center of the village, the seed glowing in her palm. This is the first truth, she said, loud enough for even the wind to hear. We are not cursed. We are careless. She knelt by the tree and dug a hole with her fingers. No tools. Just skin against earth. She planted the seed, pressed it down, and breathed on it. Just once. Nothing happened. Not yet. Then Mama Nkechi stepped forward. She dropped her cane. She didn't need it anymore. One by one, the villagers approached, each placing something into the soil around the seed: a drumstick, a lock of hair, a broken comb, an old proverb written on cloth. Not things of gold. Things of truth. Then, the sky cracked, not loud, not angry. Just open. And down it came. Rain. But not wet. This rain was light. Golden and soft, it danced through the air, soaked into the soil, kissed the cheeks of children and elders alike. The seed burst. But no tree grew. No flower. No pot. What grew instead was a sound. Low. Gentle. Like the first time a baby laughs. It spread. And as it spread, things returned. Names long forgotten whispered themselves into ears. Stories hidden under fear crawled back into mouths. Even the dead turned gently in their rest. The golden tree dropped its final leaf. It floated down, slow as forgiveness, and landed in Ari's hand. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. The village was whole. The wind danced through the huts, lifting wrappers, teasing the flames, singing through the rooftops. Mama Nkechi wiped a tear, smiled wide, and said what everyone had been too full to say. It is done. Ari looked at the sky, where the moon had split into two soft halves, cradling the stars. Then she did something no one expected. She laughed. Not loudly. But full. And in that laugh was thunder, sweetness, and truth. She turned to the village. It's your story now, she said. And with that, she walked. Beyond the tree. Past the path. Into the forest where stories sleep and wake and walk like people. The people of Odu stood in silence. Then the children ran forward and danced around the hole where the seed had been. The elders hummed. And the sky kept raining light.